Welcome to the third part of this tutorial on how to make a map for Kriegspiel using QGIS. In this part we will learn how to use Symbology and how to blend layers of your map. First we will take care of that DEM that you have previously imported. We will double click, go to Symbology and try to give some colors to that background. We change from single blend gray to single blend pseudo color. Here, as you can see, it replaces the black and whites with color values. We can select one of those values, press Ctrl A to select them all, and click on the minus to remove them, and start from scratch. We will double click on the color ramp and start from here. So this is your stop for your lowest values. I would suggest using darker colors for lower elevations and lighter colors for higher elevations. In this example it is a pretty flat terrain. We will use a dark green for lower elevation, dark yellowish green. As you can see, I also chose a color that is not too saturated. It will look much more natural this way. I will also change the opacity to 100. For the lighter colors, I will choose something maybe a bit more yellowish and much lighter. I will again change the opacity to 100. Press OK and click apply. As you can see, I have now given a color to my digital elevation model. I can also add various stops in between if I need to. For example, if your terrain was to be more mountainous, maybe you want to have something a bit more brownish in the middle and a light blue towards the highest elevations. That's simply a rough guess. Once you applied a color to your map, there's a small trick that you can do to improve its, I would say, its saturation here. We cannot see very much difference between the river, which is in the middle, and the surrounding elevations. For that, we will right click on that layer and duplicate it. Once we have duplicated that layer, you can see that it simply overlays flatly on top of the previous one. And that's where you need to look at blending modes. So that is the normal blending mode, but there are a few other ones that you can use to change how that layer interacts with the previous one. We will use soft light for that one and click apply. And as you can see, it gave pretty much more contrast to our map, because it is using that layer as kind of a lightning scale for the previous layer. I could also change the brightness if I wanted to make it appear more light or darker as well. I will keep it in the middle for that example. We will then change the appearance of another type of layer, in that case polygons, which are representing the wood that I have on my map. I will again go into Symbology, and just like there's a few layers on top of each other on our map, you can also work with layers in between a single symbol. In that case, you can see that I applied a plain color fill, but I can also change it to add, for example, an outline. Let's stroke the outline in a light black, more grayish black, and stroke will be dotted lines, for example. I can apply. It can be seen, but it is very faint, and you can change the size of that stroke. Here you have to select the actual unit you want to use. I chose millimeters here as an example. So millimeters is bound not to the scale of our map, but to our display. That means that if I scroll in and out, you can see that the stroking of my polygon actually has the same size. That's something you have to take into account when working on your symbology. I usually prefer to use beaters at scale. That way I can have every symbol be on the same scale and not dependent on the zoom level that I'm using. I will use in that case dots that are 50 meters wide because it is a pretty large scale map. I can also change the overlaying mode, the blending mode of that layer. I could reduce its opacity, for example, but I'd rather keep it at 100% opacity and choose another blending mode, in that case overlay. As you can see, it displays the features, the underlying features, quite nicely. So I can actually see my DEM behind that wood layer. I want to add also other symbols in that forest, for example trees. I can do that easily by adding another layer to my symbology. So now I added a blue fill. I can click apply just to show you, and you can move around those symbology layers by using the small arrows. In that example it will be below the green layer, and I can move it back up. I do not want it to be a simple fill, but rather something else. You can explore those things by yourself. For this example, I will choose a random marker fill. It will randomly place down markers in each of those polygons. This is a large polygon, and it has as many markers as this smaller one. So instead of being a absolute count method, I want it to be density based, so that the markers are more evenly spread out between big and small polygons. I can change the density, the number of points that I want in a certain area. Maybe I want it to be a bit fewer here, for example. And I will also change the marker symbology, because right now red dots are not good looking. I will go here and change a simple marker to a SVG marker. What is a SVG? It is not a pixelated image. It is an image that, just like our polygons, is made out of curves, and then your computer fill in the blanks. It is better to use a SVG because it is not scale dependent. If you enlarge the image, it won't get pixelated. There's already a few markers available in QGIS. If you scroll down, you can see that there's a few folders with different symbols that you can easily use. But maybe you wanna import a symbol yourself. In that case, you will look online and search for a SVG image. I will put you a link to that website, which has a good database. I can simply search for tree, look around a bit, change the category if I need to, and once I found a tree that I like, I can simply download it by clicking here. Back to QGIS. I can scroll down, get here, and choose the source file for my symbol. And you can select the symbol that you have downloaded. I will apply. I have small trees laying around my X. They are a bit too small, so maybe I want to increase their scale. Again, I would change the unit to meters to scale. And let's do 20. 20 is maybe a bit too small, so I would do 100. Too small still. 400. And here you go. I have my trees. If I want them to be clipped to the outline of my polygon, I can do it as well. It should be here in the marker layer, not in the actual marker layer, but the one on top of it, and I can clip it. Oh, it's actually here, even upper. Random marker fill and clip to polygon boundary. Once I am done, you can see that I have something quite nice looking. On my project, I also have line layers, which are used to depict railroads. I will make them look a bit more like actual railroads. I will change their color. Let's say I want them to be red. I can also change the width of that line, but here 40, yes, let's do 40 meters. 40 meters is fine. I can add another layer, so it could be a line that sits within, for example. Let's do meters to scale, and we'll go to 10 meters, apply, and now I have a black line going through my red line. I can also move that layer around if I want it to be below or on top of the other. I will add another layer, and it will be a hashed line. Interval will be set in meters. I will do 50 meters. Now it is hashed, and I can again work that those hashes the way I want them to be. It will be meters to scale. The thickness of my red line was 40 meters. I want them to be maybe 50 meters. Oh, it's the width. So 10 meters, apply, and I want them to be no longer than here, hash length. I want them to be no longer than 50 meters. Apply and press OK. As you can see, it looks pretty much like a railroad, and that's what I want it to be. Earlier we also have extracted a contour layer for the elevation. In my map it's not very important because terrain is pretty flat, but I will show you anyway how to improve that as well. If I double click on that, you might remember how I said that QGIS is pretty much a geographic Excel spreadsheet. And let me show you that first. I can right click on a layer, open the attribute table, and you can see that each of those lines actually have a fidelity value, an ID, and also an elevation value. And that's something important that we need. So we will double click on the contour layer, go into labels, and we will add a label to those lines. I will choose a single label and choose the value displayed. In that case, I need the elevation to be displayed along those contour lines. I can click apply. It was pre-formatted before, but as you can see, you can actually change the font of the text, its style, its size. You can explore it for yourself. You can also change the opacity of the text only if you need to. And there's also another thing that could be useful to you. It is if you go in placement, you can choose the text to be parallel to that line or to be curved and follow the actual contour of your elevation. Pretty cool. You can also tell the QGIS to reproduce each of those labels along a certain distance. In my example, maybe I want 150 to be displayed every kilometer along that line. So I can choose meters at scale and set the distance to 1000 meters and click apply. So it is not very relevant for my project, but you can see how to work with the contour layer. I would also suggest when blending contours to choose another blending mode. I usually like to put them in black and then choose the blending mode to, I think, maybe difference. Nope, subtract. It doesn't work either. Oh, I think it's a blending mode that is available in Photoshop, but that doesn't work here. I would simply overlay them in white then. And maybe change the opacity a little to 50. Let's click apply and change the labels as well. Text will be in white. Okay, apply. Yeah, I like that kind of look much better. And again, it overlays information without hiding the underlying one. Labels would also be useful to display the name of your features. So for this example, I will create another layer, which is a point layer, and add a single point. Save, right click on that, open its attribute table, and I can go into edit mode and add other columns. I could add another column that could be called name, for example, be text, and have a max length of 20 characters. Press OK, and that name could be city for that example. Save and close. Now I could display a single label with a name value to that point, and now I can see city displayed on my screen. I could also hide, for example, the marker and turn its opacity to 0 so that I only have the name remaining. You can add a name attribute to lines or to polygons as well. Once you are satisfied with what you have done, we will export our map. Just know that your map will be centered on what your camera is centered to. So a good thing to do would be to right click on your DEM and click on zoom to layer if that's the actual size of the map that you'll need. I will zoom in a bit more for that example. Here we go. Then we will go into project, get to layout and click on new print layout. You will choose a name. I will choose export free as an example and click on OK. You'll get to that new window. This is the base on what your map will be overlaid upon. If you click on that, you can get a few parameters here. First, you will have to choose the resolution of your export setting. It is set to 300 dpi, which is standard for printing. It means that every 300 pixels will be printed over an inch. dpi is dots per inch. That's the basic resolution you want to use if you intend to print your map. If you want it to be displayed on a computer, you can set it to 72 dpi, which is the norm, but it doesn't matter much for what we'll use it for. We'll then get to item properties. You can choose the size of that layout. Right now it is set to A4, which is a standard piece of paper for Europe, and we will switch to custom. We will change the values we are using to pixels and change the size of that element in pixels. If you intend to use it in TTS, just know that your image cannot be larger than 10,000 by 10,000 pixels. So I would not suggest going much bigger than that, and especially since it's already a very good resolution with a lot of detail. For that example, I would do a 1000 by 1000 image. It will be enough. We will then get here and click on Add Map. And you simply click and drag from one corner to the other. And here is your map. You can see that you are now working with the item properties of that map layer. And you can change its scale. It could be set, for example, to 1 to 10,000 or 1 to 50,000, as you wish, as you like. Maybe you want to add some things to that map. Let's say a north arrow. You will click here, add item, and add a north arrow. And you simply again click and drag, and here is your north arrow. You can rescale it, move it around if you need to. I will put it here for that example, and you can also select, as you can see, other SVGs. So if you found another arrow that you'd rather use, you can change it like we did for symbols. You can also add another item and add a scale bar, which could be useful. You'll get into the scale bar property tab. Unit will be meters for that example, and label for unit meters. I can choose the number of segments in my scale bar. So maybe I want there to be 5 segments to the right and 1 to the left, and the width to be not 1000 units but be 500 meters. It's an example. Do pretty much as you wish. You can work around with that. Once you are done, you can move it around as well. You can add a lot of various things like legends as well, labels. If you want to add a name for your map, it's possible. Let's choose map example. You can choose the font. Well, I will let you explore that for yourself. But yeah, you can simply explore and do as you wish. Once you are done with your map, you can export it. You will go into Layout and export it as an image. From there, you simply choose the name of your file. And I think we are done here for the third part of that tutorial. I will probably make one last episode for more advanced functions, but with all that we've learned today, I think you can pretty much make a good looking map for Kriegspiel. Thanks for watching, bye bye.